What is happening, everybody? Welcome to the first show of the rebrand, the first show of 2022. And if you didn't see the TikTok, if you didn't see, well, I guess some of you didn't see my Snapchat story last night, but if you didn't see the TikTok, this is a rebrand. The show is now called After Further Review. I am your host, Ryan Stoudt, and it is phenomenal to be back after a long 2 or 3 months since I did my last show. I just looked the other day. The last show that I did was with my very, very good friend, Landon Hammonds. If you've been a follower of the channel since the beginning, you've seen him numerous times. I've been on his show. He's just an absolutely great guy. So I was on the last show that we did. I was with Landon, and that was late October, early November. So it's been about 2 or 3 months since we've done one of these, but we're back. It is great to be back. Speaking of Landon, he's in the chat right now. Landon, what's going on? Appreciate all the support. We are finally back. I'm just at a loss for words right now because this is very, very exciting. And the way I basically came to the realization of this rebrand, first of all, I'll let you guys in on this, was a couple weeks ago, I wanted to start doing these podcasts again. And I said, well, why don't I wait till the new year and I'll rebrand and I'll really start trying to push this podcast, push the TikTok, get it out there. And not only that, but it's going to help me practice very, very much. Many of you know I'm going to college this fall to study sports information and media, which is, I cannot wait to go off to college and continue this journey. But I figured to myself that I really needed to start practicing this stuff and really start doing this more often. So in the new year, I had a resolution, if you will, or a realization that I needed to start doing this more. So I'm starting to try and post on the TikTok as much as I can almost every day. That's where you're going to find most of this stuff. Not the Facebook anymore, not the Instagram. I'm going to keep it to TikTok. I might start an Instagram up at some point and try to revamp the Instagram. Facebook, I'm probably not going to do for the time being because it's hard to run, I guess, 4 social media handles at one time. But nonetheless, that little intro is done. We're back. If this is your first time finding me here on YouTube or on all podcast streaming platforms, welcome. As I said, this is a rebrand that I'm doing. It's called After Further Review. I had some names in the past. It's the same topic, though. This is going to be all about the sports world. And basically, after further review, I'm going to review all the latest topics in sports. So today, what I have for you guys, we're going to talk about some NFL coaching. We're going to see who got fired and who I think should go certain places. Of course, you see the flag in the back. We're going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings and all the other coaches that got fired. I'm going to give you my lock and upset for this week's NFL playoffs, the Super Wild Card weekend. I'm also going to give you my season awards for the NFL, my Super Bowl picks, and then we're going to swing over to the National Basketball Association because the Splash Brothers are back. Klay is back in the Bay. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that as well as the Warriors team as a whole. But first and foremost, we got to talk some college football. I have never, ever, ever done a college football story, I don't think, on this podcast. I know I've done it on Landon's show a couple times, but I have got to give credit to the Georgia Bulldogs defeating the Alabama Crimson Tide Monday in the national championship. And I also got to give credit to Alabama because this kid, Bryce Young, is something else. And if you know me well enough, you know that I'm not a huge Alabama fan. I'm not a Nick Saban fan. Being an Ohio State fan, I'm not an Alabama fan. So I do have to give credit to Georgia. They came out, they played really well. Their defense showed up. The best defense I've seen in a very long time in college football. But Bryce Young is absolutely absurd. Heisman Trophy winner. Balled out all year. I believe he set a record of some sort for passing touchdowns. I mean, it was absolutely absurd. Not only that, the receivers that Alabama has, this is a good young team that is going to be sticking around for a while. Landon in the chat, he's an Alabama fan. Let's put his comment up there. He says, full props to Georgia. Not to make excuses, but our two best wide receivers were out. We will be back. Roll Tide. And I was just going to get to that, Landon, because if your two best wide receivers are in the game, if Alabama's wide receivers don't get hurt, I honestly think it's going to be obviously going to be a closer game. Alabama might have won that game. The young talent that Alabama has, not only with Bryce Young, but as Landon just mentioned, with their wide receivers, this team is going to stick around for a long time. And I have to give props to Georgia, though, because not only were they the best defense in the country this year, not only did they have a great coach, their quarterback was a walk-on. Stetson Bennett was a walk-on, and he goes and wins a national championship. That itself means so much to this kid. I mean, to not even know if you're going to be able to play football collegiately, be a walk-on, and go win a national championship against a team like Alabama, that is an amazing story. That is an absolutely amazing story. This kid can play some football. I will tell you that. And Georgia is lucky to have him. And I see the NFL in his future. I really do. As a walk-on in college, that is what surprises me most, is that this kid didn't know if he was ever going to play football again. He goes and he's a walk-on. Landon also said in the chat that there were so many drop passes from the young guys, and that's true. You know what? When you have your two wide receivers out, you put backups in the game, not used to the big lights under the pressure and stuff, and they drop passes. It's going to happen. The fact is, however, Georgia's defense, again, probably they're a top 5 defense in college football history, in my opinion. Their defense was what won them this national championship. If Georgia's defense isn't as good as it is, Alabama could have won with their backup wide receivers, in my opinion. Stetson Bennett is good. His defense got him there. That's the thing. Stetson Bennett, all credit to him. It's a feel-good story. He's a walk-on quarterback. But his defense got him there. And again, credit where credit's due. And I just had to talk about that story for a second because Stetson Bennett is just one heck of a kid. I mean, geez Louise. What a story. So, with that said, college football, we're done talking college football for the day. I just needed to throw that out there and talk about Monday's game. Now, into the NFL we go because, as we know, the NFL season came to an end on Sunday. And typically, the day after the NFL season ends, that Monday, you see a lot of coaching fires. And boy, did we see coaches get fired. Let me run down the list for you that we've seen so far. First of all, my Minnesota Vikings finally fire Mike Zimmer while also firing their GM Rick Spielman, which I'll talk about that in a second. Chicago fires Matt Nagy and their general manager Ryan Pace. Miami, in the shocker of the offseason, in my opinion, fires Brian Flores. Denver fires Vic Fangio. And the New York Giants fire Joe Judge, and Dave Gettleman, their GM, retired. So, Landon in the chat already, he says, thoughts on firing Joe Judge? And you know what? I will start there. Joe Judge was fired yesterday, and I think it needed to happen. There were sources around the NFL that said that Joe Judge was going to stay before Week 18 happened. And then Week 18 rolled around. And Joe Judge, for some reason, has a 3rd and 9, and he runs a QB sneak on 3rd and 9. And the NFL world was shook. Certainly Giants fans were shook. Because if you don't know if anybody watching doesn't know any football plays or anything like that, the absolute number one thing you can't do on 3rd and 9 is run a QB sneak. And I think that got him fired. I really do. I do not know what was running through his head when he ran that QB sneak, but I think it was definitely a good fire. Landon says, I personally think that was a worse firing for the team than Brian Flores. I think both are stupid. So I don't think that firing Joe Judge was stupid. He had 2 seasons to turn him around, which, again, that's not a lot. So I can see where you're coming from with the 2, if you're talking about 2 seasons, not being a lot of time. But when you pull a stunt like running a QB sneak on 3rd and 9, there's something wrong there. I would compare a Joe Judge to an Adam Gase as far as coaching ability. I don't think Joe Judge will ever find another head coaching job. A coordinator is different. An offensive or defensive coordinator. Right, yeah. I would have given him 1 more year. Landon says I would have given him 1 more year, but it's understandable. I could see him giving, and people were saying that, give him 1 more year. They were saying that before week 18. Then he goes in week 18, runs the QB sneak, and proves that he is an incompetent coach, in my opinion. He's not fit to be an NFL head coach. Like I said, a coordinator, a college coach is different because we've seen plenty of NFL coaches that can't coach in the NFL that are absolutely amazing in college. Look at Nick Saban, what he did with the Dolphins. Urban Meyer with the Jaguars. Urban Meyer was a great coach in college, even though I don't like Urban Meyer. He was a great coach in college, went to the NFL, couldn't get the job done. Nick Saban, probably the best college coach that will ever live. As much as I don't like Nick Saban either, probably the best college coach that will ever live. Couldn't cut it in the NFL. Chip Kelly, who was a decent coach in college, couldn't cut it in the NFL. But yeah, I don't like. I mean, I like the firing of Joe Judge. I think that was needed. The shocker is Brian Flores. Brian Flores turned the Miami Dolphins around in 3 seasons. Took them from Adam Gase, who I just talked about, who's probably one of the worst coaches I've ever seen in my life, and turned them around and almost made them a playoff team. Completely flipped the narrative. There's no reason to fire Brian Flores. Absolutely no reason to fire that guy. You give Brian Flores 2 more years, that is a contender. That is a contender. 2 or 3 more years. Brian Flores with the Dolphins. I mean, look at Zimmer. Zimmer was with Minnesota for 7 or 8 years. You give Flores 7 or 8 years with the Dolphins, that's a team that's competing for a championship. It's got to be a team that's competing for a championship. 110%. So I think that was the dumbest firing, probably the shocker of the offseason. Probably the shocker of all of the offseason. That is going to be the most shocking thing I think that happens. Well, time will tell. But I got to talk about my Minnesota Vikings for a second. We're gonna swing up north to the Minnesota Vikings, where I can talk about Mike Zimmer finally getting the axe along with Rick Spielman. Mike Zimmer originally came from Landon Hammond's Bengals. He was their defensive coordinator, and then in 2014 gets a head coach job in the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to give props to Mike Zimmer for the work that he did in Minnesota. And I know that may sound funny because anybody that watches my podcasts or has seen the TikTok that I run, which, by the way, it's Ryan.Stoudt now. It's not the name of the podcast. It's Ryan.Stoudt. The podcast logo is the TikTok logo. Anyway, I have been very, very critical of Mike Zimmer this season, but I do want to give him credit for what he did in Minnesota. Took him to an NFC championship. Probably had something to do with the hiring of Kirk Cousins. Got them to be one of the top defenses in the league. And then it was all downhill from there. These past 2 seasons were probably the worst seasons I've ever seen Mike Zimmer coach. I wish you could have seen your live reaction to the mic. Landon, I was jumping up and down. I was actually, when I learned that Mike Zimmer got fired, I was in school. I was in my government class. And my buddy came up to me and he showed me his phone that Mike Zimmer got fired. And I just about yelled. I mean, I was so happy to see that Mike Zimmer got fired. And again, credit where credit's due. He did a lot of good in Minnesota. It was his time to go. And it was almost like he was forcing his way out. If you watch some of his media stuff, he was forcing his way out. And Rick Spielman was the shocker to me. I thought they would have given Rick Spielman one more year, but they decided to completely clean house, which, hey, I respect it. You want to get a rebuild going, and it's not that much of a rebuild either. I personally believe that the Vikings are a good coaching staff away from being Super Bowl contenders. They have a good team all around. If Kirk Cousins could learn to be a playoff quarterback, the sky's the limit. Kirk Cousins is the epitome of a regular season quarterback. They have a great running back in Dalvin Cook. They have a great receiving core, probably a guy that's going to be one of the greatest receivers in the league in coming years. He's definitely a top 5 receiver now, in my opinion, Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen on the other end, probably the best receiving core in the league. Their defense is finally back to its former glory once they're all healthy. The offensive line and the coaching staff are the two things that they need to work on. Now, who do I want to see as coach of the Minnesota Vikings? I would love to see, obviously, the top of my list is Brian Flores. Brian Flores being with Minnesota would be amazing. He's more of a defensive-minded coach. However, he is a motivator. He is a guy that could get the job done in Minnesota. My second option that I said on my TikTok was Jim Harbaugh out of the University of Michigan. Now, that is an offensive-minded coach. That is 110% an offensive-minded coach. And I think that he would – because I think that's what the Vikings need. They need an offensive-minded coach. Mike Zimmer was defensively minded, and he couldn't run the offense in his last 2 seasons. So an offensive-minded coach is what Minnesota needs. My third option is Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, none of these people have been interviewed. I can confirm to you guys now. The Vikings have met with Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, and they have also met with Doug Peterson, the former coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. I am personally not a Doug Peterson fan. However, I think he might be okay in Minnesota. I would rather see a guy like Kellen Moore because Kellen Moore is young, and I would love to see what he can do. He's running the Dallas offense, which is probably one of the top offenses in the league this year. And yeah, bottom line is unless it's Brian Flores, I don't want a defensive coach to coach the Minnesota Vikings. That is almost the last thing that I want to happen. The reason they need an offensive-minded coach is because they have the talent on defense. Mike Zimmer got them to where they are on defense. Their offense is what needs work. Think about it. This year alone, the Minnesota Vikings lost almost all of their games within one score, down to the last play of the game. Think about that. They lost, I would bet you, 90% of their games on the last play within one score. Their offense needs work. That is exactly what the Minnesota Vikings need, and that's what I hope they get. As a Vikings fan, that's what I hope they get. But I can report to you guys, it is confirmed, the two people that the Vikings have interviewed so far are Doug Peterson and Kellen Moore. Those are the two guys that have been interviewed by the Minnesota Vikings. I think that it's going to be interesting in the NFC North. You got two teams that need new GMs and new head coaches. So the NFC North is going to have a lot of moves. this offseason. Another fired coach that I thought was really dumb was Vic Fangio. The firing of Vic Fangio made no sense to me because he was actually starting to turn Denver around. So I think they should have given him much more time. But that's just me. I don't know what goes on in the front office of the Denver Broncos, but I think Vic Fangio was also another coach that got fired that didn't deserve to be. And I would take Vic Fangio as the Vikings head coach. I really would. Anybody that's a solid coach that's offensive minded. That's a guy that I want in Minnesota as a Vikings fan. And I think that's a guy that the Vikings need. Now, if the Wolves who are the owners of the team, if the Wolves if the Wolves make the right decision, they'll make an offensive minded hire. If they're hiring the coach. I don't know if they're hiring the GM first or not. And I haven't seen many names thrown out there. Just like who people want, I've seen that, but I haven't seen many names thrown out there as far as who might be a front runner for the GM of the Minnesota Vikings. Moving on, we're going to stick with the NFL because this weekend is super wild card weekend. Of course, all of the wild card games are played this weekend. The two teams that have a first round bye are the Green Bay Packers and the Tennessee Titans. The rest of the playoff teams play this weekend. So I'm going to give you my lock and upset right here on After Further Review. My lock for this week in Super Wild Card Weekend goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles had won 4 in a row, I believe, before they lost to Dallas in Week 18. And they are a solid squad. Nick Sirianni did pretty good in his first year. As much as I didn't trust Nick Sirianni and I thought it was a really bad hiring, he did okay. He got them to the playoffs as a 7 seed. Tampa Bay is just too good. They don't have a lot of I shouldn't say too good. They don't have their receivers right now, but they have Tom Brady, and that's enough to beat a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. The only chance that the Philadelphia Eagles have is the fact that Tom Brady has not been great in wild card games. Wild card games are Tom Brady's downfall. If Tom Brady can get through the wild card, look out. I mean, have mercy. Tom Brady is a playoff quarterback. If he can get through the first round, he might steamroll through the rest of it. Now, they're not my pick for the Super Bowl. We'll get that in a second. But they are my lock this week over the Philadelphia Eagles. My upset for this week is the San Francisco 49ers, the 6th seed in the NFC, over the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, the 3 seed. The Dallas Cowboys sort of declined as the year went on, weren't as good as they are, or they aren't as good as they were at the beginning of the season. And I think San Francisco is a force to be reckoned with. And I think they are going to shock the world and beat the Dallas Cowboys this weekend. I can definitely see it. I can 100% see it. That was my quick take on my lock and upset for super wild card weekend. My season awards, now that the NFL has ended, are up next. And some of these are who you would expect. Some of these probably might not be who you would expect. Starting with the MVP, I think this is a 2-man race. It's between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. And I'm giving the MVP to Tom Brady. Let's just take a look at what Tom Brady's doing at age 44. Tom Brady is first in passing yards at 5,316 passing yards this season. And he's first in touchdown passes at 43 touchdown passes. This man is 44 years of age, and he is throwing 43 touchdown passes on 5,316 passing yards. That is unheard of. That in and of itself means that he should be a clear-cut candidate to win MVP. There's nobody else that could do that at age 44. Ben Roethlisberger is like 38, and he's getting ready for this season to probably be his last. By the way, while we're on the topic of the playoffs, real quick, I have the Chiefs winning this weekend, but I think the big question that looms around the AFC is what if? What if the Pittsburgh Steelers can make a run at this thing? What if Ben Roethlisberger wants it bad enough that he can carry his team to a Super Bowl in his final year? Manning did it, but Manning had a pretty good team. The Steelers aren't a great team. They're not one of the best in the playoffs this year. But what if? What if Ben has one more ounce of fight left in him? What if somehow, some way, they upset the Chiefs this weekend and win in the divisional round and go to the AFC Championship and go to the Super Bowl and maybe even win the Super Bowl? I don't have them picked this week, but I want everybody to keep that in the back of their minds. Ben Roethlisberger, first ballot Hall of Famer, in his final year in the NFL, sneaks into the wild card, and just keep it in the back of your head. What if? What if? Back to my season awards. Offensive Player of the Year. There's no doubt about this one. The Offensive Player of the Year is Cooper Kupp. He's first in yards, first in receptions, and first in touchdowns. He is doing things that we have never seen from a receiver in the NFL before. And him and Matt Stafford just have that connection this year with the Rams, who, by the way, are the 4 seed in the NFC. And I think I honestly think that whoever wins the Rams-Cardinals game is going to the NFC Championship. Defensive Player of the Year. TJ Watt, 22.5 sacks. That's first in the NFL. Yet another great season for TJ Watt in Pittsburgh. That's the other part of the what if. What if TJ Watt and the Pittsburgh defense can carry Ben there? I'm just saying. Keep it in the back of your mind. What if? I'm not making this a hot take or anything, because I don't think it's going to happen. I have it in the back of my head. What if? What if the Steelers can do this? You never know. Offensive Rookie of the Year has to go to Ja'Marr Chase. 1,455 yards. That's fourth in the NFL, and 13 touchdowns. That is third. One of the best rookie campaigns, sort of emulating Justin Jefferson's rookie campaign last year at the receiver position. He had 3 touchdowns in the game against the Kansas City Chiefs 2 weeks ago, and he is by far the Offensive Rookie of the Year. 100% the Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's a lock. Some people might say Mac Jones. It's Ja'Marr Chase. It can't be anybody but Ja'Marr Chase. It cannot. And finally, Defensive Rookie of the Year, that's Micah Parsons, out of Dallas, out of Penn State University. Micah Parsons is my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year. 13 sacks and 3 forced fumbles on the season. Another great rookie campaign out of Dallas, who has turned the corner. That's the one I forgot. I forgot to put Comeback Player of the Year on here, but I think we all know Comeback Player of the Year should be Dak Prescott. It's between 2 guys. It's between Dak Prescott and it's between Nick Bosa. And I give it to Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, after that nasty ankle injury, that nasty season-ending injury last year, Dak Prescott's going to win Comeback Player of the Year. And he should win Comeback Player of the Year, as far as I'm concerned. So those are my picks for the season awards. Now, final NFL topic before we get into our final topic of the day. And again, the final topic of the day, we're going to the NBA. This is our final NFL topic for today. And I'm going to give you my Super Bowl picks now that the playoffs have started. Sorry, I moved my chair there. My Super Bowl pick for this year in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, we will see the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers facing either the Titans or the Chiefs. That one I haven't figured out yet. I think the Chiefs have turned a corner. They're a force to be reckoned with in the AFC. But the Titans, Derrick Henry is back in the playoffs. And we've seen what the Titans could do with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a tank. Tannehill is not a bad quarterback. Julio Jones, A.J. Brown. The Titans have a squad. They got a good squad. And I think they could give the Chiefs a run for their money. I think the AFC Championship right now is Chiefs-Titans. And the NFC Championship is whoever wins between the Rams and the Cardinals versus the Packers. And I think the Packers are going to go to the Super Bowl. The Last Dance. Hey, we didn't even talk about that. Is this Aaron Rodgers' last year in Green Bay? He certainly made it seem that way at the beginning of the season. But he's having a ton of success right now. And I guarantee you, if Aaron Rodgers stays, Davante Adams is going to stay in Green Bay. Davante Adams is going to do what Aaron Rodgers does. That's how much power Aaron Rodgers has in Green Bay right now. Is this the last dance? I don't know. If he wants to emulate the last dance of 98-99 with the Chicago Bulls, this is it. If Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams are serious about this being the last dance in Green Bay, we are counting down the final games that we will see both of them in a Green Bay Packers jersey. If they're following the last dance narrative that the Chicago Bulls pulled off in the 90s, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen win their 6th title, they're out. You never know. You never know with this league. I think they probably will stay, but you never know. You absolutely never know. So that's my Super Bowl pick. That is my NFL topics for today. And we're going to move to the final topic of the day, a feel-good story, as well as my opinion on the team as a whole. First, the feel-good story. 2019 NBA Finals. Let's backtrack to 2019 in the NBA Finals. Klay Thompson tears his ACL. He's out for the next season. He's set to make a comeback in right before the 2020 season. And he tears his Achilles. He's not coming back. So he's out for the 2020 season. It was like 950 some days, I think, since Klay Thompson's last game, and he finally made his return Sunday night against the Cleveland Cavaliers to a packed house in Golden State. And that was such a feel-good moment. Klay Thompson finally makes his return. The Splash Brothers are back after, 2 seasons? 2 seasons it's been since we've seen Klay Thompson and Steph Curry on the same basketball court playing together. Probably one of the best backcourts in the history of the game. Definitely a top 5 backcourt in the history of the game. The 2 best shooters in the history of the game, in my opinion. You got to throw Larry Bird into that conversation, but Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are right there with him. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter on planet Earth. We know that. The greatest shooter we've ever seen. I don't know if Klay Thompson's a close second. I might give the second to Larry Bird, but then again, I might be a little biased back there. Yeah. It was such a feel-good story. And it was so nostalgic for any NBA fan to see Klay Thompson coming back to Golden State, playing with Steph Curry. That's a nostalgic moment. Now, With Klay Thompson coming back, does that mean that Golden State is the best team in the NBA? The answer is 100% yes. That means that Golden State is the team to beat in the NBA. The Lakers aren't anything, and they will not be anything this season. That idea didn't work. Bringing Russ to LA, that didn't work. Anthony Davis is injury prone. Russell Westbrook is not playing great at all right now. Once again, the Western Conference is the Warriors Conference. The Suns are the only team that can compete with the Warriors right now. As a matter of fact, they're ahead of the Warriors right now. But it's the Warriors Conference to lose. And as far as anybody in the NBA, I don't think the Nets can beat the Warriors. Kyrie Irving's a nutcase. James Harden isn't playing his best basketball right now. Kevin Durant's all they got. And what if Milwaukee beats him again? Milwaukee has their number, folks. Milwaukee has the Nets' number. They just beat him again a couple days ago. And Milwaukee can't beat Golden State either, in my opinion. The Bulls, who are in the lead in the East right now, who are having a tremendous season, they can't beat Golden State. The Grizzlies just beat Golden State. Maybe they have a shot. Not in a 7-game series, they don't. The Warriors own the NBA. It's time to come to a realization. The Warriors own the NBA. And the Warriors, not only do they have the MVP of the league, in my opinion, in Steph Curry, they are going to win the NBA title this year. They're going to do it. They're going to win the NBA title this year. Plain and simple. That's what I have for you today. Here on the first episode of 2022, the first episode of the new name after further review, hosted by yours truly. Thank you guys so much for watching the podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast and you want to hear more just like it, go ahead and tune in to After Further Review. This is going to be weekly now on all podcast streaming platforms, as well as right here on YouTube. We're going to live stream on YouTube. Also, if you have not, check out my TikTok, Ryan.Stoudt. That's Stoudt is how you spell my last name. Go ahead and check that out. You're going to get updates on when the shows are going to happen. And yeah, again, you want to hear more podcasts just like this? Go ahead and tune in to After Further Review weekly on all podcast streaming platforms, as well as right here live on YouTube. And if you want more sports content just like this, go ahead and check out Landon Hammond's show. I believe he did a rebrand, and I'm having trouble coming up with the name right now. I will get that name out to you at some point. So check out his show. And then check out John Mark Stiver's show as well. His is Crunch Time Sports Show. I know that. Landon, I'm sorry if you're listening to this. I'm blanking on the name right now. I will get it out to my audience next show. But again, you want to hear more podcasts just like this, go ahead and tune into my show as well as theirs weekly on all podcast streaming platforms, as well as right here on YouTube. This has been the first episode of After Further Review.